acknowledge that's most likely what the Greeks would have said when it comes to just the skill level and the presentation of that African piece of art.
Well, it depends. So that specific one
That's
you're
starting to
giving me.
sound mighty subjective that it
No,
depends.
well, good is a metric of my opinion of something, right? Art is a designated category of something. So if there can be a crazy person that disputes an apple is an apple, but objectively it's an apple, right? If we look at something, we would say, well, this is an apple. Some wacko could say it's a banana, but it's still an apple. Mm-hmm. So I don't really care about the criteria of how you feel about art. I could hate an art piece, but it would be the metric of it is objectively art by the skill set, like I said in my description. I mean,
then it is not, your point isn't this, that we don't look and say, is that painting behind you good? The question, no. You don't take a stance on that. You just say, is it a painting? No. Is it art?
No, well, see, now there's something interesting, right? So there is subjective nature to, let's say, what do we consider a drawing? Is a line on a piece of paper, is that a drawing or not? Yeah, in that sense, what contributes a drawing as a lower order tier. But the higher order tier, right? Art has a specific kind of relation behind it, especially in the old sense. That's why I brought up the old definition. So a lot of where this argument comes from is I have to break down all the way back, because why this got formed is because I believe there's a fundamental deterioration of this entire field that has come through many years, right? That to the point of where it's pretty much been distilled into just pure bullshit. But taking it back to its original sense, art would have this higher order category of what is defined as art. And what falls under that category, I believe, is objective. How you feel about it, I don't care about. That has no bearing on it. So that's why I said specifically.
Go, yeah.
Yeah?
Go, no, because here's my question.
Yeah, so
let's distill it down to one, just so I could get a clarification.
Yeah.
Let's distill it down. So let's say a painting, right?
Yes.
Paintings are a category of things that can be art. So I put paint to a canvas. When is it art?
Yes.
What are the criteria for when it is art? When it's not just a painting, but it becomes art?
So I gave my definition. It's a human employing a learned, skilled craft to create a desired outcome. So the objective determination for this. Remember, we have objective metrics for art itself, right? I mean, we have core fundamentals for these things because ultimately, like I said, this is what spawned technology. So where we go, we have drifted into this mental scape of all this bullshit nonsense is considered art because it's the what is a woman type of situation. We have gone so astray with what definitions relate to that now we don't even know what a woman is anymore. And I feel we've done the same thing with art. There are elements to art: line, shape, form, color, value, space, texture. There's fundamental criteria for these things. So a skilled person that replicates a painting, how you feel about it, or whatever the criteria is, if somebody who is skilled that understands these things looks at something, they can objectively say, yes, high level of skill set, proficiency, these things were attributed to this. This is art because it's at a high-end spectrum of what a human can produce. We can do this with any field and say, can only 5% of the population do what I'm looking at? Yes, cool, it's art.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
All right, so let's start with this. The definition you said is a learned craft to create a desired outcome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There has to be time.
My son is 5.
Yes.
And he's learning to draw. And I can show you. Here's one of my son's drawings. He made it into a mouse pad for me. Right? Yes. That's I'm Blue, that's my wife, that's my dog Dorothy. He's down here. Is that art?
Nope.
Why not?
It's not a repeater. He doesn't have a learned skill set.
He learned
that he's doing to create.
He did. He started off, he wasn't even able to make stick figures. He learned, after practice, he learned how to better make stick figures and everything.
Yes.
So why isn't that learned? It might be a low level, but it's something he learned.
Yeah, so how it works is, right, yes, you can attribute that to it, right? But in the objective metrics, right? Line, form, shape, composition. Anybody that looks at that understands these fundamentals will say, no, this does not abide by any of that criteria.
Okay, but again, even then, line, form, etc., that can't be definitionally to art because there are forms of art that don't utilize any of that.
Go. Which ones? Which ones don't follow objective metrics?
Well, don't follow those objective metrics, right?
Yes. Well, there's multiple different things. Do you want to go with music, balance, movement, rhythm, pattern, contrast, unity, emphasis?
What makes it art is the understanding. Like, what if I intentionally subvert it? Is it art?
I mean, you can subvert these things, right? But if there's not a measured high level proficiency to the skill set that's being used, it cannot hold the title of art. So your son's drawing is not art, it's a drawing. There's a difference between a drawing and an art piece. We can agree to that, right?
Well, I don't...
Is all drawings art?
No. I think that it would be subjective in the standard of the viewer, right? I think that what would separate art would be something that evokes feeling within the person that's viewing it, right? So, for example, an AI print that you print out on 1,000 shirts, we might not say is art, right? Because we'd say that doesn't evoke some human emotion, right?
Oh, it's inherently not art if you want to talk about AI.
Well, okay, we can get to that later. I don't mind. Well, I'm here for all night, so whatever.
Nice.
But the point is, like, if this evokes emotion, I don't see why we wouldn't consider it a form of art. And let's see if we can get deeper into it. Let's go back to the times of, I believe you talked initially about the Greeks.
Yes, so the Greek, yes.
Okay. At the time of the Greeks, their contemporaries around the world that would have never met the Greeks, right? Did they have art?
Yes.
They did.
So yes, so it's got to have some kind of a learned skill set or some kind of actual meaning or basis in which this thing is determined as it has a value to hold the title of art.
But who gets to determine value?
It would be on an objective metrics because, like I said, if we go, it's subjective because I subjectively say it's subjective. We're just making a circular argument right now. So the point is your emotion regarding something, is that a valid metric to judge it by? That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's not a valid metric.
But objective implies
emotions.
Now again, right? You even if you would win that argument, which I'm not conceding yet, but even if you won that, your argument would have to be that there's no room for objectivity. So, for example, let's say at the times of, let's see if I could screen share something here. Is this art?
And you're more than willing to critique it on anything, right? You can use any of the 7 major forms of art: painting, sculpture, architecture, literature, cinema, theater, music. You know, all of these things are the.
Do you want me to bring that up?
Yeah. Is that art?
Yes.
Why?
Do you know why?
Yeah, I'm asking you why. Explain why.
Cultural significance.
What if the Greeks would have looked at that and said line, shape, form? This is all shit. If someone in our culture
the objective metric that makes that art is firstly historical significance, and cultural capsule that encapsulates a culture. So it's history, it's a documentation of culture, it's got objective metrics, very old, it's got objective metrics that make it art. It's not about the drawing. The drawing doesn't mean shit that's on there.
But you said that art was shape, form, lines, color theory, shit like that. If the Greeks...
There's multiple metrics.
Okay,
objective metrics we judge things by.
But that can't be, because you just said 2 of the metrics that you would put there, I would put in the completely subjective category. For example, history and culture. By the same token, like, I could say that anything that sells a lot right now in the entertainment industry is art, because it's culturally significant.
How does that give it cultural significance?
Well, you just said that piece right there, because it had cultural significance, that would deem it as art.
What did I say? The cultural significance of it is that it has a historical value.
But wouldn't the historical value be at this point in time? Like, let's say that I create some AI song and it becomes the best-selling song in the world, right? And for 5 years, you hear every time you're out at the club, and they play it at the Super Bowl, and they play it when the president, they play Hail to the Chief in 2028 election, and then they play this song. That's cultural significance. That's historical significance, undoubtedly. Is it art?
No, well, firstly, I mean, if you bring up AI, we can do this. AI is not art. There's no human involved, and it's creating on its own. So definitionally, art is a human characteristic. That's why it's specifically in my thing, a human making
Okay, but
something.
even it said,
When
then it
art-
say, then,
yeah.
then say for whatever reason, I put together a piece that you're like, this is objectively shit. It goes against, you clearly have no fucking clue what's going on with music. It's clearly objective bullshit. Anyone who knows anything about music would look at this and go, this is dog shit. And yet it reaches all the same high marks that I just said. Is it now art?
No. Again, the same way most people, we can go, a majority of people say that a man can be a woman. Objectively, they're fucking wrong. They're wrong.
Okay, but what
They're
I'm
wrong.
asking is, given that you said that there's historical, even if something looks
Yes.
very shitty and it's very rudimentary to art critiques of the day. For example, the Greeks, who had, in my opinion, right? I'm allowed to have an opinion because I believe it's subjective, but in my opinion, I think that the art that was around in Greek and Roman era far surpasses the African art we see, right? And yet, when it comes to like all sorts of things, like their paintings, their sculptures, the technical expertise, the learned nature, the history of like sort of the tradition of, you know, building upon the people that came before you. I think the Greek and Roman art far superior. And yet you would say, but that African art's still art. Because even though had it been made in Greece, it would have been laughed out as not art objectively. It's still considered art because
Subjectively.
Well, no, your claim is objectively it would have been laughed out and not called art.
No, not objectively. They would have
No,
found.
no, no.
They would have found.
That's your whole
They would have
argument.
found value in that. A lot of cultures took each other's trophies and objects
No.
from
That's
other
I'm saying
other-
if a
other
Greek had
countries.
made that,
Yes.
that objectively the Greek artists and artisans at the time would say
Yes.
that's shit. That's not art.
Yeah, but now it doesn't. It for the Greeks, no, it would not have been right if a Greek made a similar thing. It's because the objective nature of it is its origin. Its origin, its chemical composition, what clay was used, these things that relay a technological value to a geological.
But then you're going to run
geographical.
afoul. You run afoul of the example I just gave, where you said that my song that becomes the biggest song in the world, that by the standards of today is objectively shit, that it still wouldn't be considered art. But historically it would. 20 years from now, when they're like, this great revolution happened, this song played, and the Super Bowl happened, and this song played, and this song was a rallying cry. It does not matter that it fucking was objectively, according to you, not art based on the composition. The cultural significance that it took on would mean that it's now art.
No, well, so now, well, that's just a slippery slope. That's saying, well, in 20
that's your
years it will
slope.
be.
That's what you're saying
No,
about
no,
Africa.
no, it's not.
Well,
Well, that's post hoc, right?
how much do you know about African art? Just curious.
I know quite a
You
quite a
do?
good amount about it.
I'll take your word for it. But can you explain to me? Could I show you, like, if I show you 10 things like this? So I shared that again. If I showed you 10 pictures like this, would you be able to tell me if 5 were art and 5 weren't?
Rob, can I tell you something? So to quickly put a nail in this, a chunk of concrete from the Greeks, right, or Roman concrete, a chunk of fucking concrete from that time, because it has a technological value, because it can self-heal the concrete. That is fucking art, because it's a technological marvel what they achieved by making self-healing concrete. So that chunk of concrete, now today we go, shit, this is a piece of artisan craft that is amazing. How did they fucking do this? Because we can't do this.
So let me not.
So it doesn't matter.
Let me not bury the lead. What I'm saying is, when you talk about historical and cultural importance, I think you give the game away, because we could even see when it comes to just straight history, not in the world of art, what is considered historically significant is oftentimes very subjective, from person to person, from culture to culture, right? And so the point I'm trying to make is, reasonable people could say that the song that me and you think shit, that became the biggest song in the world, might be dog shit and not qualify as high art or art whatsoever, according to our taste. And yet, if enough people say, no, I feel that it's culturally significant, and one of the criteria that makes something art is that it has significant cultural significance, if culture itself is subjective and the interpretation of it, what is significant, is subjective, then art itself has a subjective nature.
It wouldn't have cultural significance in the sense of because we have enough documentation about this culture, it would have zero cultural significance, because we have direct documentation of this culture You would have to make an argument for why it does have cultural significance. What happens in the future is slippery slope. Why we attribute value to things from the past is because it documents the past. I don't care about what happens in the future. Cool. When we get there, we can talk about that. But right now, we attribute value to ancient things because it documents a time there was no documentation. That makes it art.
That's subjective, right? There was documentation back then. There wasn't as much as
in Africa.
But now there's
yes. Where did the Africans write shit down?
Well, it's not. Well, again, it depends on what you mean by documentation. It's not just writing shit down. Like
what do we have except for pottery with regard to documentation of ancient cultures? Yes.
Okay, that's
so that also has a value. That's why those things are protected, right?
The idea, but this is a threshold. This is sort of becomes a subjectivity based on threshold. Well, if enough stuff's written down...
There's objective metrics, what gives value to things.
No, hear me out.
It's not about how people feel about how the drawing looks.
No.
That doesn't mean nothing.
No, that doesn't mean that it's art. That means that it's historical.
Why do we keep ancient pottery,
please,
Rob?
you have to give me a chance. You have to give me a chance to talk here, right? Right. So the idea is now you're saying, well, there's historical value, therefore it's art. Even a piece of concrete could be art because of the historical value. But that doesn't make it art. That just makes it valuable to give an insight of what was going on there, right? When we say, but there was cultural significance to it, that becomes subjective. Now you seem to add a new criteria. Well, it's because we didn't have a lot of other things that were culturally significant at the time, whereas now we do. I think that that's sort of changing the goalposts, and I think your original interpretation is more correct, which is that if enough people in society say this thing that was made, right, we qualify as art because there's meaning here. There's meaning, even if we don't think that it's technically masterful, right? And we say, like in the context of music, for example, in this, that there are, tonality and there's rhythm, and these are all the things that you would have to have technical proficiency before we consider it art. Even though this piece is lacking of it, the fact that it inspired such cultural momentum would itself put it in the category of art. And I think that and I think you're correct about that interpretation, we would have a subjective view of what that would be that would meet that cultural criteria, that it shows that art is subjective.
Okay, so firstly, you're correct. I did mention cultural significance, right? But it was in the sense of cultural significance because of historical value. So because there's a lack of documentation of said culture, the main value it has is not its cultural significance, but a documentation of the culture. So historic value is the objective metric that gives it value. The drawings in the cave are shit. Everybody thinks they're shit. It doesn't matter, but because of its historical significance, that's why it's art. Because the skill set employed is a very rare skill set. We don't have a lot of it. Gives it value objectively. But
then forget about historical, right? Let's go back to that example of African art. Once more, you concede that the Greeks, if the Greeks didn't know where that came from, you just have a master pottery artisan. He sees that pottery, would say, this is dog shit. This isn't art based on what I say is the necessary knowledge and skills necessary before I would consider a piece of pottery art. You would acknowledge that's most likely what the Greeks would have said when it comes to just the skill level and the presentation of that African piece of art.
Well, it depends. So that specific
that's
one.
Starting to sound mighty subjective. That it depends.
No, well. I mean, we're giving a hypothetical art piece. Or are you talking about that
the specific one I showed you?
The specific one, yeah. So that would be historical documentation that gives that.
Not
value.
If it's contemporary. Now it's not historical. Literally, some merchant traveled to sub-Saharan Africa, and then 2 years later he travels back up to Greece, and here's this pot. It's only a 2-year-old pot, and the artisans in Greece look at it and go, this is dog shit. This sucks. Yeah. If anyone made this in our school, we'd say, this isn't art. This is dog shit. That's what they would say, right? At that point, there's no historical significance to that pot. It was just made 2 years ago.
Yeah, if a present-day person looks at something that's present-day, it lacks historical value because it's present day.
That's my point.
So I don't understand the argument.
So then it wouldn't have been art at that point.
At that point, no.
Okay, great. So that African pot that I showed you, at the time it was made, wouldn't have been considered art based on the people that were experts of the day. Okay, now let's say that same pot at that same time in history was made in a village that never had any contact whatsoever with the Greeks. And this is the best pottery that village ever put out. Is it art?
Yes, functionally, in that sense, actually, it would be. See, if it's the highest level of achievement of that tribe, right? Then it would be a higher order skill set that makes it art.
But it's subjective then in the eye of the person that's interpreting it. It would not be the very definition that to two different people it could be considered art and not art proves that it's subjective. The Greek would say it's
No,
not art, the African would say it is art. Therefore, and you're saying they're both right. That proves that it's subjective.
you are going so based on subjective people's opinions, it's subjective.
No, if it is just one objective metric, it is either art or it's not, then it must be that way for everyone. If different people come to different conclusions, by its very nature, it's subjective.